Hi everyone! For this week we'll be doing Lesson 21, The Various States of Life. As always, we'll start with the introduction. Introduction. There are 3 states of life that are prevalent in the Catholic Church. Just an overview, there's marriage, priesthood, and asceticism, which is another name for religious life. The majority of those that we know are married and live as a family. Priesthood is another style of life. Priests are those who do service as intermediaries between God and man. Priests in the Catholic Church dedicate themselves for the service of God completely without getting married. And then lastly, we have asceticism, which is another style of life. These are religious people who dedicate themselves to God completely. Married life. In the beginning, God created Adam. It is not good that the man should be alone, as noted in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. God, understanding this, created Eve as helpmate to Adam. God made Adam and Eve dwell in the Garden of Eden and laid a foundation for the first family. Also noted in Genesis 1 verse 28, it says, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it." In addition, in Genesis 2 verse 24, it states, "A man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife, and they become one flesh." These verses show us that God blessed married life and established its unity and its aim. The family life, which God blessed in paradise, is being continued even today through different generations. Marriage, a vocation of God. 2 people become married because God specifically calls them together. God specifically called Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Rachel, and led them to a married life. Even today, God specifically calls and sets apart each one who marries. It is because of the plan of God that man and woman are drawn to another and accept each other. This is how marriage is understood as a divine vocation. The Church teaches that marriage is a call of God. It is understood that husband and wife love each other and share in God's work of creation and glorify Him. The sacrament of marriage. Though marriage could be thought of as a social custom, it is a sacrament. Marriage is a service in which God specially calls man and woman, setting them apart, giving them divine grace, and then uniting them. Thus, marriage is a mystery by which, through the intervention of God, divine grace is showered upon the couple and they become one. In order that man and woman love each other, share each other, and become sanctified, human abilities alone are not enough, but the grace of God is necessary. The state of life of the priesthood. God had specially called several people in the Old Testament for service. We see the prophets, priests, and kings being called, separated, and specially chosen by God. When the Lord asked who would go to speak to the people for God's sake, Isaiah replied, "Here am I, send me." The voice of God continues through generations. The priests and the religious are called by God to serve Him. These are the people who specially receive the call of God and dedicate themselves for His service. Who is a priest? The priests are those who are specially set apart for God and for divine service. A priest is one who stands as a bridge between God and man. Jesus Christ, who served as the only intercessor between God and mankind, is the supreme priest. Priesthood is a sacrament that Jesus instituted in order to share His priesthood. God calls a person specially and sets him apart and prepares him for divine service. God gives infinite divine grace to a person through the sacrament of priesthood. In this manner, a weak person, through the grace of God, stands as a bridge between God and performs the priestly service. A priest has fundamentally three services: to teach, to sanctify, and to lead. God himself does these three services. The priest stands as a delegate of God and preaches the word of God in his name, administrates the sacraments, and gives spiritual leadership as well. The ascetic life. Ascetics are those who fully dedicate themselves through the threefold vows: obedience, poverty, and chastity. They are especially called by God to attain Christian perfection. Like in marriage, where you love one person and have one life partner, asceticism is the opposite. It is when you love all people, loving God above all. Through the vows, ascetics seek the pleasure and joy of others without seeking one's own joy and pleasure. The three vows include poverty, chastity, and obedience. Poverty is giving everything to others without possessing anything for yourself. Chastity is rendering love to all and not restricting it to one person. And obedience is when you dedicate oneself to serve others for the love of God. Another category that falls under the ascetic life are those religious men and women who take on singlehood and dedicate their lives for God's mission. My vocation. God specially calls each person to continue his mission. This call is for married life or priesthood or religious life. Not only do you need the help of God to make this decision, but sometimes you may also require the help of elders and your parents. We need to understand the will of God regarding our vocation, and we must be attentive to the call of God. We must seek out and ask God for help, and then we can understand our call through prayer.
Do you appreciate because you see in the life in your churches and monasteries? They celebrated in their hands your body and blood. For the pardon of offenses in your sanctuary, Lord, let your body take your penalties and your blood wash away their sins. On your right side let them sing glory.
Life witness. God has a plan for each individual. Let us try to understand God's plan for our own life and live accordingly. The verse to memorize this week is St. Matthew chapter 16, verse 24. If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. The questions for this week include: why is marriage said to be a call of God? Who is a priest? And what is meant by asceticism? For this week's activity, think of someone in your own life who has answered the call for the three vocations you have learned. Name someone who answered the marriage state of call, priesthood, and asceticism, and then reflect on God's own vocation for you.